Today, we're diving into what seems like a really tiny, almost dusty rule buried inside one of India's most prestigious military think tanks. But here's the thing. Changing this one small rule isn't just about housekeeping. It's actually a major strategic move, all about opening the doors to the future. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the old rule itself. Then we'll see exactly how it's putting the institution's core principles at risk. After that, we'll see how it stacks up against its peers around the world, lay out a clear plan for what to do next, and finally, really get into why this seemingly small change matters so much. All right, let's kick things off at the very beginning with a truly historic institution and a policy that, well, seems to go against everything it's supposed to stand for. Okay, so the United Service Institution of India, you'll hear it called the USI, was founded way back in 1870. I mean, for over 150 years, its whole mission has been to promote the study of military art, science, and literature. This place is meant to be the intellectual heart of India's defense community, where big ideas on strategy and warfare are supposed to be born. But here's the strange part, the paradox. The USI has this rule that its journal will only publish a review of a book if that book is already sitting physically on a shelf in its library. Just think about that for a second. If a game-changing new book on AI and warfare comes out tomorrow, a topic that could literally redefine conflict, nobody can officially review it or debate it for the USI community until the library eventually maybe gets a physical copy. So, what's the real damage here? Let's break down how this one simple rule actually creates some pretty serious problems for the USI's mission in the 21st century. First up, intellectual breadth. The current policy basically forces the institution into a corner. It ends up prioritizing having a complete dusty archive over being intellectually up to date. I mean, think about the most critical topics right now: hybrid warfare, cognitive security, the Indo-Pacific strategy. This rule means the USI is always playing catch-up instead of leading the conversation on the things that matter most. Second, this hits right at the heart of professional military education. The whole point of modern military education is to sharpen critical thinking by engaging with all sorts of sources, especially the new and challenging ones. This policy, it does the exact opposite. It tells officers not to bother seeking out new ideas, creating what the source material perfectly calls institutional echo chambers. And of course, that brings us to reputation. For a top-tier think tank, a policy like this just screams, "We're closed off." It sends a signal to the rest of the world that the USI isn't even keeping up with the latest global defense books. So instead of looking like a thought leader, it risks looking like a follower, waiting months, sometimes years, to talk about vital new research. And finally, there's the huge issue of fairness and equity. Think about the younger officers and civilian researchers out there. They're often the ones most plugged in to cutting-edge ideas online, reading ebooks and digital papers. This rule effectively silences them. It tells them their analysis of a brand new vital digital book isn't welcome, just because a physical copy isn't on the shelf yet. So you might be wondering, is this normal? How does the USI's policy stack up against similar institutions around the globe? Well, let's take a look. The big question is pretty simple. What is the global standard for a place like this? And wow, the contrast here is pretty stark. You look at the top institutions. RUSI in the UK, the US Army War College, NDU Press in the States. What's their main criterion for a book review? Topical relevance, strategic relevance, originality. They care about the idea. Then you look at the USI, its criterion, physical availability. It cares about the object. This makes it a real and, frankly, a concerning outlier. And this quote from the source material just nails it. The book review section, which really should be this wide-open intellectual gateway for new ideas, has instead become an administrative gatekeeper, more concerned with checking a library catalog than sparking a critical debate. Okay, so the problem is crystal clear. But just pointing out a problem isn't enough, right? You need a solution. So let's pivot to the plan for the future. The proposed new policy is actually really simple but powerful. It shifts the entire focus from a book's location to its relevance. It says the USI will accept reviews of any relevant publication, whether the library owns it yet or not. The only checks are for authenticity and relevance. The things that should have mattered all along. It's a move from focusing on process to focusing on purpose. And this isn't just some vague wish. It's a practical 5-step plan. Step 1, just amend the editorial rules. 2, create a small committee to vet titles for relevance. 3, allow digital submissions. That'll speed everything up. 4. Create a register of these reviewed but not held books, which then becomes a smart shopping list for the library. And 5. Review the new system every quarter to make sure it's working. It's a clear, totally manageable path forward. So let's bring it all home. Why do we care so much about one little rule for book reviews? Because it's about the vision for the entire institution. The results of this one change could be huge. We're talking more intellectual energy, more diverse voices, more participation from a new generation of thinkers. You get a journal that's actually timely and relevant, which in turn strengthens the institution's global reputation. It creates a system that welcomes new ideas instead of building a wall to keep them out. The key takeaway is this: it's not just about one rule. It's about transforming the USI into a more dynamic, inclusive, and forward-looking organization. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This whole story is really a case study in how a tiny, outdated piece of bureaucracy can totally stifle innovation. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What small rules in our own organizations, maybe born from good intentions in a totally different era, might be the very things holding back our next big ideas?